Welcome to Art Share, the podcast for artists by artists, with your hosts, Brigid Ashwood, Ash Evans, and Mary Layton.
Hi, and welcome back to Art Share Podcast. I know we've been gone for, 2 years? I think it's been 2 years. Longest small hiatus ever. But we're so glad to be back, and we're really excited because we've revamped the show. As you may have noticed, our brand new intro with the fancy music and pictures and whatnot. And we're here with our awesome guests this year, Ash Evans and Mary Layton. I want to give Ash a chance to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Ash Evans. I'm primarily a digital artist who works in Corel Painter and occasionally Photoshop. I do a lot of different medias, but I'm primarily a creature artist.
Oh, I like that way. That's a good way to put that, creature artist. Mary?
Hello, I'm Mary Layton, and I primarily use watercolor, but I also do some digital with Corel Painter. And yeah. Hello.
And I'm Brigid Ashwood, and I've worked in every medium I think that I can think of. I mean, I'm classically trained in quite a lot of different mediums, but primarily these days work digitally in Corel Painter. And the reason we're all making such an effort to specifically mention that we use Corel Painter and how much we love it, rah from Ba, is because I'm so happy to say that this year I was selected to be a Corel Painter Master for 2016. And so, which is something that was just announced along with a bunch of other people who I'm not sure yet, everybody who was selected a Corel Painter Master. So we'll talk about that on another show. But so this year you can expect from Art Share Podcast more talking about the art world and what it means to be an independent artist and everything involved with that, like, doing shows, licensing, merchandising, dealing with customers, but also just the act of creativity itself and painting. And specifically, we will be focusing on digital painting and more specifically Corel Painter and how to get the most out of that program, because it really is the best, but then I'm a little biased. So let's see. Moving on. So what's everybody been up to in the 2 years, the sad, long 2 years that it's been since we got back around to doing this show?
Well, I switched countries. I moved back from the UK. I was there for a couple of years and then I'm back. So I switched countries. And just I've been developing a story for one of my licensed characters, Fortuna the cat, because today in licensing it's not enough to just have pretty pictures. They need a story, and they need this and a song and a dance and everything else to go develop the character further. So I've been working on character development and a pitch Bible, and just working intermittently with Hollywood, even though I kind of told them to go somewhere recently. We have to keep it clean, so I have to think,
I know
have to think now about what I'm saying, which is unfortunate for everyone.
I know it's very difficult for Ash and I to communicate at all if we can't swear. So
yeah, me too.
There's these awkward pauses in those what do they call them? Those filler words? There's like a word for that. When you and ha and
like filibustering. I don't know.
That's because we're trying not to swear. Right?
I flipped them a kitten and told them to have a joyful day. So that's been basically my life. I mean, I've done like way more fun things than that, but
I know it's going to take us a while to remember because it's been 2 years. It's been a lot, Mary.
And I drink. So
I know when we had planned on bringing the show back anyway, But our initial plan when we were bringing it back was we were going to do it in the evenings with wine and drink and just be our authentic selves. But then when I found out I was going to be a acrylic painter master, which I was so thrilled about, because actually that's been kind of something I'd wanted to be ever since I started working with acrylic painter, but more on that later. But then I realized, okay, well, we definitely want to bring the show back, and we want to talk about acrylic painter techniques and using that program. But that also means that we need to have, a wider appeal. So no swearing and no booze. At least not till we're off the air. We're still at 10 a.m. here, so we should. Probably not a good idea anyway. But Mary, what have you been up to?
I've been involved in 3 tarot deck projects. Currently doing one, theme is Carnival for 78 Tarot. So I've done that, and also I've written a book, and that's about it.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, you only wrote a book. You only wrote a book, Mary. It's all a book.
This little something she whipped up.
Yeah. Just throw it out there,
I went to the dentist, wrote a book.
I know. And both of you also have your own oracle decks now too.
Yeah.
I know this because I publish them, because that's something I've been up to in the past 2 years. When we where we left off was right around NaNoWriMo. I think, was it 2 years ago? I need to double check. I really hope it hasn't been longer, and I've got this terrible memory, and it's actually been a decade since we last did that show.
It might have been 3 years, because I feel like I've been back from the UK longer than that.
Feels like it might have been years. That's terrible. But let's just not worry about that. We're just going to make it whatever we want in our head, whatever makes Brigid feel better. Okay. So it was a month. Okay. Anyway, but at least we used that time wisely. But towards the end of the initial season of Art Share, when we had NaNoWriMo, I felt the show it was my first time doing a podcast where I was kind of in charge of it. And I really felt like things sort of got out of hand and went in a direction that I never wanted for our listeners or intended, and is just absolutely not my message as a creative person at all. And I felt like towards the last few episodes of the show were very discouraging and negative, and kind of had this elitist, almost gatekeeper mentality of, it was very negative against NaNoWriMo, which personally, I think the spirit of NaNoWriMo and the intention behind it is fantastic. I think that while not everybody can write well, I do believe that people can learn. And I think talent only takes you so far. Then it's hard work and skill. And skill you develop by practicing and by learning and by educating yourself. And I think that even if someone never gets to the point with their work where they're winning prizes, or they're on the New York Times bestseller list, or where anybody, or where, objective opinions really think the writing is all that spectacular, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care how good your art is. If it's worthy to you, it's worthy to be made. And everyone has the right to then share that work with the world. And I firmly believe that as a creative person. And I felt like we really failed at the end of the first season of the podcast in conveying that to our listeners. Because I just think art is what makes life worth living. So hopefully we'll live up to that this time. I think we really will. Because I know everybody here has the same philosophy, you know what I mean? So I digress.
We're not going to sugarcoat it for you. This isn't like the fluffy bunny, everything's great hour, but we're not going to tell you to cut your hands off and never write again, because
exactly.
It's like Ratatouille. Everyone can cook.
Right.
Disney knows you can do it. And I think people that tend to be discouraging of other artists, there's an underlying current of insecurity about their own work that's leaching through into that statement. because if you were secure in your own work, you wouldn't really be concerned or worried about what other people are doing or the quality of work that they're presenting, because it has nothing to do with you personally, but your opinion is personal. Therefore, you're gathering that from somewhere, and a lot of times it's because you're insecure.
And so, yeah, ego and I think resentment and jealousy can come into play, because when we see other people getting opportunities that we want, and maybe we don't like their work, or we don't respect their work as much, or don't think it's as good or as deserving, but that doesn't matter. I mean, that's not where your focus should be at all. That's just going to shut you down in your own work, and you have to move past that. And I think, we all have that. We've all seen stuff, online or whatever, or even, modern art, will see pieces of modern art that they can't stand, and they'll say, I can do that. That's not art. Well, just because it's not good in your opinion doesn't mean it's not art. And it doesn't mean that that person doesn't have a right to create it. And I think especially when we were talking about NaNoWriMo last year, there was just this vibe going on that I just really don't agree with at all. I don't care if you've never written in your life and you just want to participate in NaNoWriMo and write something just for the experience of it. Do it. You have a right to be creative. I mean, it's air for the soul, the creative drive. So do it. And then from there, you know what? If you want to publish it, you have a right to publish it too. You also have to deal with the feedback that you get, because if it needs editing, or you need more work as a writer, well, once you put it out there in the world, that's a different story. I mean, I think there's a big difference between just creativity and then creativity as, your profession. There's a bit of a difference there. Because once you're moving into the professional field, you really are subjecting yourself to criticisms and feedbacks that you may not always want, but they're part of the job, as we all know very well.
I think as professionals, you learn to remove the word deserve from your vocabulary, because no one really deserves anything. You have to work for it. And if you feel like this person doesn't deserve it, it has nothing to do with if they do or not.
Right.
An old proverb that said people rarely get what they deserve.
Right.
Because it's really not about that. It could have been luck. It could have been a connection. It could have been something that you just don't, it's not your cup of tea, but it's obviously somebody's.
Right.
But
it hit a nerve in the market, and so that's why it took off. And
it's like one of my trigger words. I have several. I have deserve. I have exposure.
Right.
A couple of them that just get me.
I know. I quote you all the time with that. Whenever anybody is like, "Oh, as an artist, don't you want to do this for the exposure?" And I always say, my friend Ash always says, "People die of exposure." So no, I don't.
Freeze death. You can or you can get arrested. Pee Wee Herman knows.
Yeah.
I mean, exposure. Too much of it is bad for everyone. If you're a photographer, if you're on Mount Everest,
Right.
I cannot think of a time where too much exposure is good for you. And it's not currency. Like, I don't get that. For me, there are two currencies in this world: money and time. And they're the most valuable ones, and everything else is just kind of relative. And of course, time is the only thing you can't recoup. You can earn more money, you could do everything else, but unless you make a pact with some kind of deity, you're not getting more time. But yeah, exposure, it's just dirty and deserved.
I so agree with you on time. Yes, I think time is more valuable than money, as a matter of fact. But that brings me to, though, I think because of that, at the end of that first season, I have to admit, I was feeling personally discouraged and negative about my ambitions at that time, which was writing fiction and publishing it myself. And I think big part of the reason we didn't continue with the show was my personal failing, because it really put me in a low place, because at that time there was such backlash about NaNoWriMo at that time and independent publishing. There was a lot of this idea that, anybody who self-publishes or independently publishes is just guaranteed rubbish, because they didn't go through this gatekeeping process with so-called experts giving them the right to write. Okay. And so I was kind of feeling pretty low. Thankfully, over the past few years, I got past that, and that was a lesson for me to learn. And I've since published 5 fiction books under a pen name, and happy to say they're selling very well. And additionally, I then started my own self-publishing company, independent publishing company, where I'm not just publishing my own works, but those of my friends. So both Mary and Ash are with my company, Sacred Rose Press, where we publish Oracle decks based on my system, the Ashwood Oracle system, which I'll actually put a link up for that, because actually the Ashwood Oracle system is open source. So any artists that are looking to create like a tarot deck, right? I know that's a goal of like a lot of artists, because it's just such an interesting art object, right? But that's, 78 cards, which is daunting. That's several years of your life. So my system is based on tarot, but it's only 30 cards. Yay! And that it's open source. So you don't have to invent an Oracle system from scratch. If you want to do this, you can use mine. It's already based on tarot, and it works with anybody else that uses the same system. They all kind of like go together, which is pretty great. But I'll put a link up into that in the comments. But I've learned a lot from that, and been selling on Amazon and selling wholesale, my own coloring books, and the fiction and the Oracle decks for my artist friends, and they've been doing pretty well. So that's the moral of that story is what is that quote? My girlfriend posted it to my Facebook page. Don't let small minds convince you that your dreams are too big. I love that. That really struck a nerve with, we get more likes on that on my page yesterday than the new artwork I shared.
I get more likes from my cat photos than pretty much anything else.
I know, isn't that always how it goes?
I posted a character design yesterday, and like 3 people unliked my page, but I posted a picture of my cat, and they're all like, "Oh my god!"
I know, and it goes viral.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Well, so did you guys have any lessons kind of like that over the past 2 years? Things that you had to learn professionally, or?
Oh.
That was like the second time I've been through something like that. And this time I was like, you know what? Could we learn this the second time, Brigid? How about let's not go through a third? So here's hoping.
Oh my gosh. I personally, I've had a couple experiences, but like the most, I guess, prominent / traumatic one was my dealings with Hollywood and developing a story based on some of my characters with people in the business, which prompted that blog post about the velvet rope and how it's just not accurate. You have to pause.
Right.
I can't say what I want to say.
A dozen swear words were spinning in front of her vision at that moment, and she couldn't talk.
I'm going to hold up Angry Donald every time I want to swear.
So
when you see this duck, you know I'm angry.
We need to come up with the creative swear words like how I taught my daughter when she was little. We would be like, oh, minced kittens or puppy chunks. Like that.
One will slip out. Like once I give myself the permission to even make a fake one.
Yeah.
This is safer for me.
Okay.
So I dealt with Hollywood, and they were so interested in my story and in my character, and they really liked the look and the design of it, and they thought, that I was going to be someone that they could work with, because I think they thought that I was small and I was a woman and I was pretty easily manipulated into
I'm gonna get a cease and desist from Disney for this video.
I hope not. I love
I'm kidding.
My story came in, and now I have figured out like the formula for Hollywood, and it's kind of ruined every movie for the rest of my life, because I actually see how it works now. And once you've seen how the sausage is made, you're less likely to enjoy it in some cases. They took this idea, and it evolved from like this beautiful story into a smoldering pile of stuff Rather quickly. It went from a story about Halloween to a candy bar commercial sponsored by Whole Foods. It was disgusting. I was so angry about this whole experience, and I was told to affect like a persona, and I was going to have to be viral and edgy and pretend I loved Game of Thrones for like this virality, and if I hear the words viral and edgy anymore in a meeting, right, I'm gonna duck my mind a lot. And it was discouraging. Like, I stopped painting for a while. I was depressed about it a great deal, because I was like, this is my shot. I'm gonna, did I make the wrong decision? So I just have taken the money because you can't eat scruples, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized for me, I'm not going to have children. This is like my work is what I'm going to leave behind. And I really didn't want that to be the thing that I was remembered for. So you can't let people influence ultimately what your goals are,
right,
or things that you really solidly believe in. Because I even had another party interested in the same story, and they had the complete opposite to say of what the previous company had to say. So the point is, no one knows what the hell they're talking about.
Right.
They don't know what they want. Deadpool being in the theaters right now, everyone's raving about it, and it's funny because it broke the formulas, and there were people on Twitter talking about it going, look, Hollywood, your formulas are garbage, and people are sick of it, and this is why. And I think the system as a whole is broken, and it makes it very hard to be creative in that field, because it's more about virality than content.
Right.
So I've learned I'm just going to do it myself. And I'd rather fail as myself than succeed as this sham of a woman in a wig pretending to like,
right,
Thrones or whatever's popular that day, because that's fleeting. And
no, I agree with you. And I think that that's what's so exciting about the indie revolution, which has totally been fostered by the internet. I mean, it wouldn't be possible without the internet, is that we can now produce these things ourselves and get them directly to our fans without the gatekeepers and the middlemen. And that's been really, really rewarding for me. To see that that there are enough people that like my stories just directly. It doesn't have to be a blockbuster New York Times bestseller that was, acquired in some kind of bidding war, from the New York traditional publishers. That's fine. Just that there are, at this point, thousands of people who've read my fiction books and like them is enough for me. I mean, I'll take the money. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm going to keep writing and advertising so that, but,
you have to make decisions based on functionality and finance and not ego. And we've discussed this personally before. Is it an ego decision, or is it, a feelings decision, or is this a finance decision? Because I feel like there are very many, in a lot of cases, the publisher are needing to have some of these things. It's more from an egotistical standpoint,
right,
as opposed to a financial one, because sometimes the realities are you make more money doing it yourself.
Actually, anymore, that is pretty much the case most of the time. Because I have a foot now, two some years later or whatever it was, I've have this whole parallel career in the fiction writing, but then I've also got, my art, and really the things that I learned and experienced and produced in the fiction writing, independent publishing fiction writing, has influenced then how I've handled things in my art career, and why I decided to start the independent publishing company. Because what I saw was that pretty much universally every independent author that I knew that was self-publishing and doing good, you're already doing well enough then to get the attention of the New York publishers. And then they signed a deal, and every one of them regretted it, unless they worked out some remarkable, amazing deal where, they got, gold bullion from the publishers and nobody else did. Okay. But that's super, super rare. But they were all made less, way less, and regretted it, and felt that the very thing that these publishers said that they wanted, their voice, they then tried to change, So yeah, for the people that are listening, because I always forget, on iTunes we're audio only, but on YouTube you can watch the podcast and see us. But the reason we're laughing is because Ash keeps holding up this stuffed animal, and that's her symbol for anytime she has the urge to cuss and she can't. So anytime you hear us laughing, Ash probably held up the duck. We need it down. You need to like quack or something.
I'm not quacking.
I'll quack for you. Okay. You guys didn't know that was my hidden talent?
No.
One impression I can do is I do Donald Duck sneezing.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Now you have a career in voiceover work.
Right.
Just in case the other two don't work out, you've got a fallback.
This guy doing Donald's voice, he can't do a sneeze. Quick, bring in the Ashwood. Fly her in.
Now we're getting the cease.
Give me my money. I'm out.
Now we're getting the cease and desist order.
Yeah, now we are. All right, guys. Well, that's a good stopping point for this, our first episode back of our Chair podcast. What is our new slogan? It's by artists, for artists. Our Chair podcast. It used to be like both ends of the brush or something. I don't know. People don't always get my sense of humor. Like, I just thought that sounded stupid. So I liked it, both ends of the brush. We almost had theme song for this one that was like, it was like this loungy, like 50s music. I was like, yes. And I thought, no, nobody will get it. They'll take it seriously and think, oh, this is going to be boring. But I thought it was funny because it sounded boring, but whatever. All right, guys. So that's the end of this episode. We'll see you next time. And thanks for listening.